Welcome to my vision therapy tour video. We're down in the basement of our house. This is pretty much the main room. It's the biggest room where I have a lot of area to kind of spread out. I can stretch a really long Brock string across the room or set up balance boards or trampolines and not worry about falling off and hitting something. Or I can set up some obstacles and walk around and do figure eights while I'm looking at an activity. So I'll just start and kind of go around the room with what's in here. This, of course, is the rotator that I built, and I'll go over that in a little more detail in a minute. And then next to that, we have these dividers, which I had stretched out in kind of a straight wall, and then I would have a Brock string on either side and stand in the middle and look down it. So that was pretty useful for that. And of course, I've got Brock strings kind of hanging everywhere. And then over here, we got a few balance boards. This is one that I just made out of some scrap wood. It's just the typical T. And I got some bean bags and buckets there. And this balance board is one that I bought. It's got kind of a rounded bottom, so it just pivots around. And this board I always put down so the balance board doesn't dig into the carpet. So I put up, well, I have the red, different colored arrows activity, and then I put up a dry erase board, and I did that so I could do chalkboard circles. And right now I have the red green arrow set up because that's what I've been working on lately. And this is kind of handy because it has magnets, so you don't have to tape everything to it. So that's worked out good. And then over here I have an activity set up that was really hard for me at first, and I have the Bosu ball set up to stand on, and then up there I have the red and white sheet up high, and then on this wall I have one that's kind of down low. So I'll stand on the ball and just look back and forth and make sure I can pick out each item. So that's one that I've gotten a lot better at that, so I make sure I do that every once in a while. If I haven't done it for a few months, I can really tell that I need to work on it again, so I keep that set up. And another setup I have is because I have a lot of trouble when I look to the left, I kind of lose the alignment. I can look straight or look to the right, but when I look to the left or left up or left down, I kind of lose it. So I have this setup where on the floor, I have the little man fusion card, and then to my left, I have the two circles for fusion, and then straight ahead of me, I have another two circles for fusion. So I'll just look at one ahead and then switch to one down and then switch to the left. And the focus is just switching from center back to left and center back to left, so I can kind of practice that. So that's been pretty useful. And on that computer back here, I made some red and green stripes. It doesn't fill the whole screen, but it kind of serves the purpose. So if I want to read a book or anything that's online, I'll just kind of zoom in right here and read with red-green glasses. And that's a pretty good challenge. And I think that's everything here. Okay, so I had this table set up with a lot of equipment on here, and I'll just pick out a few things. This is the zipper that Dr. Alicia scanned and emailed to me, and then I printed it out and I laminated it. And I've actually used that quite a bit, so that's been really handy. And I have an aperture rule, which I got that off eBay. And I think a couple times I actually took that out in the backyard and walked around with it for a while. And luckily, we live in an area where the neighbors can't really see you in the backyard, so I use that quite a bit. And this is a gyroscope that I built to do some tracings. So everything that looks purple is what I 3D printed. So I bought a couple lenses, I think I got them off eBay, and then I built all this, and then there's a little mirror that's glued to it here, and then I've got my paper for tracing. And then I think I got a bunch of shapes off the internet that I printed out to practice on. And then over here, I have a Dot-Worth flashlight. And then I have some red-white playing cards and some red-green sports cards. I think I got those off AliExpress because, again, those are things that I can't really buy off Bernil on my own. And this thing I want to show, it's one of these little viewers. A lot of times kids use these, and I had one of these when I was a kid, and I never realized at the time that it was supposed to be in 3D. I thought you were just looking at pictures, and no one ever told me that. So I got one recently just to see the 3D in it, which of course I can see now. So I thought that was pretty cool. It's just something that I can do now that I never could before. So this is just an occluder that I 3D printed. And of course I have the stereo fly test with instructions. And over here is kind of just my library. There's kind of miscellaneous books and the Magic Eye books over there. Most of those you guys have probably heard of, so. Okay, over here I have a few little lights that Dr. Alicia gave me, and I use these where at night I'll turn out all the lights, and this activity is to set up the 3 lights all in a line and then kind of jump single double from each light. So I 3D printed out this little holder to hold the light in it. And then these are microphone stands that I just took the microphone clip off. So these just fit here, and I can adjust the height to whatever I want. So those worked out pretty good. And I think that's everything in this room. Okay, so in this room, it's kind of more of an exercise room. There's not a lot of ET in here, but of course I have the red-green sheets on my TV over here. So what I will usually do is just watch some videos. I do have a Wii and Mario Kart if I want to do that in video games, but I usually just watch videos. And when I'm on the treadmill, I'll kind of watch. And I usually wear the red-green glasses for, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, and then take them off and take a break and put them back on for a while. And I also have some smaller sheets here where I could do 4 in a row rather than 2, but I usually just use the 2 larger ones. We'll go in this smaller room, and there's not a lot of ET in this room, but I wanted to show it anyway real quick, because if we come over here, there's a picture up here from the Cars movie, and it's one of those lenticular 3D pictures, so if you move side to side, you can see kind of the depth the cars are closer and the background is further back, and that may not show up on camera, but I like having that because I can actually see the depth now, whereas before it would have just looked all flat to me. So the other thing I wanted to just point out in this room, you can see that it's more of a music studio. So if any of you have listened to any music I've recorded or seen any videos, that's all done in this room. I record everything on a laptop. I have a little audio interface where I plug in my guitar, and if I record vocals or record an acoustic instrument, I set up some microphones in here, which I don't have set up now because as soon as I'm done with them, I just take them down because they're always in the way. And then if you ever see a video where it's me with the background removed, I'll have a green screen set up here, and that's where I'll shoot that video. I don't leave the screen set up because it takes up half the room. The other thing is I have this little string for judging depths when I walk around the room, so that's come in pretty handy, so I just leave that there. So that's it for this room. All right, now we'll come into this next room. Okay, so if you want to come in here, kind of stand over here and turn, because I have some things in the corner here. So hopefully the lighting's good enough. So I have a couple fusion cards in the corner, and then I have this mirror, double-sided mirror with the nose cut out. So this is where you can do the activity where I look into the mirror and kind of fuse these together. And then if you could come over here and maybe kind of get a little shot of the shelf in the closet. I didn't take all that stuff out, but I bought some of the games that we used in the office, and way over in the far left there's another game, but that's just some of the things that I've bought. Okay, and then on this wall, I kind of made my own little Howlphoria activity. It's just kind of a part of a yardstick with an arrow. And then I'll turn on some light here. So there's another activity that I can do with the double mirror. I have the little smiley face here, and then the little maze where I can make the smiley face go through the maze using the mirror. And then over here, of course, I got yet another balance board that I bought. That one kind of rolls back and forth. And then I used that when I was looking at my activity here. So this little frame, it's a holder for a vectogram. I have my quoits up there now. I was borrowing the spiral for a while, and this will actually hold two. So I can set up two of them at opposing disparities, so I can converge, diverge, and jump back and forth. Right now I just own one, so that's the one I have now. So that's pretty handy. And down here, I have the straw activity where you can do the sword thing, and this kind of moves around up and down so I can get different heights out of it. And then I have my red-green sports cards up against this, which is kind of a backlight. And then over here in this corner, it might be hard to see, but I'll hold up against the white wall. It's a little tiny Brock string made of little tiny beads that I've had tied here. And if I remember right, I think Jess made that for me probably my first year when I was having a lot of trouble with Brock strings. So I use that quite a bit. And again, we have more Brock strings. Okay, so if we turn around here, I've got the Marsden ball, this is actually a red-green ball, and I think this might be the one thing that I was able to buy from Brunel, if I remember right. But I 3D printed that little clip that's blue, and there's a little pulley, so I can change the height. I think that's how they're set up in the office as well. That's the 3D printer where I print out all this stuff. And let's see, I got another little whiteboard where I can write daily activities. And the most important tools are right there. So I'll talk a little bit more about the rotator that I built. So what I did was I bought a floor standing fan. So that's what this all is, like a big industrial fan. And the fan used to be right here. So I removed the fan, and so everything down is what I bought, and everything from here on up is what I made. So this is a metal frame that I welded together, and it attaches to where the fan would have attached. And this piece is a piece of lick sand. I think it was something I got out of the scrap bin at work. It's a little scuffed up, but it still serves a purpose. And so I just cut it into a circle shape and drilled a bunch of holes in it, and it mounts to this plate here. And I don't know if it shows up on camera, but I do have some red and green lines drawn on it. They're kind of faint, but they do actually work with the red-green glasses. A few different setups I have. This one has the red and green heart charts on it, and what I have is the golf tees that go in here for each one, but what I did is I 3D printed some little shapes that go on the end of the golf tee. So I got the circle, the plus, the triangle, and the minus, and that just helped me to keep track of which one I was on a lot better, because the golf tees are of course different colors, but with the red-green glasses sometimes it's kind of hard to tell what color you're looking at. So I just printed out these little shapes, and that seemed to work out pretty well. So those just go in there. Okay, so if you come around to the back side, I'll show a little more of how I made this. So this is the metal frame that I welded together, and there's a plate here, and there's an axle that goes through here, and a couple bearings that you can't see. I know it's getting a little technical, so bear with me, that's just how I think. And this little pulley here, the silver one, I machined on my lathe. I think the ones in the office are a direct drive motor, and you just turn them on and it drives directly, whereas this has a motor down here and a belt drive. When I was building this, those direct drive motors are really expensive. So what I did is I bought this, which is actually a rotisserie for a barbecue grill. And I just bought it off Amazon, and it just turns really slowly, which is what I wanted, something that turned slow. And the problem was it actually turned a little too slow. So that's why I made this different size pulley system. So the rotator actually rotates a little faster than the motor rotates. It's kind of like the gears on a 10-speed bike where you have big sprockets in the front, little sprockets in the back, and vice versa. And if you change gears, you can pedal at different speeds. That's what this is doing. The belt and the pulley I got off an old treadmill that I scrapped years ago, and I used that. So all you do is just turn this thing on, and it rotates. And if you turn it off, sometimes, let's see if it'll do it. Didn't do it that time. There it goes. So it reversed direction this time, and the motor doesn't technically reverse. It's just such a cheap motor that sometimes when you turn it on, it starts up backwards. Well, that just happens to work out good for this application. So So that's how the rotator works. And I have some other different pieces here so I can set up some different things, which I'll show in a little bit. Okay, with this setup, I have this long rod connected to the disc here, so I made these mounts with these little thumb screws so I can mount this in here. And right now I have the belt disconnected from the motor so I can just spin this by hand. And I have this rod pretty much as long as I can get it to where it doesn't hit the ceiling or the floor. So on this side, I made this little loop, and this is where I can tie a Brock string to it. And that way, when I'm washing the Brock string, I have this really long swing that really helps. When I first started doing this, I just tied the Brock string here, and I got a swing that was just as big as the circle. And I wanted to make it more of a challenge, so I made all these mounts and got this rod. And now I get a swing that's pretty much as big as I can get it indoors here. So that's the setup for the long string. This is the last setup I have for the rotator. When I was in the office, I took a picture of the rotator when it had this picture on it. And then I took the picture to work, and then we have this really large printer that we use for printing out large mechanical drawings. So I printed out that picture on that printer as large as I could, and then I just have it taped to the disc so it stays up there. And the colors, it doesn't cancel perfectly, but it works good enough that it is pretty useful, so I've gotten a lot of use out of that.